Ladies and gentlemen, queens and warriors in the making, let me say something right now that I want you to remember every time someone tries to dim your light. You were not born to react, you were born to rise. You were not placed on this earth to keep proving yourself to people who refuse to see your worth. You were born to glow, to radiate your power, your presence, and your peace. We live in a world that constantly pokes, provokes, and pushes. People will test your patience, your grace, your boundaries, and I get it. It's tempting to clap back, to respond, to explain, to prove, but here's the truth I learned the hard way. Every time you react, you give away your power. And darling, your power is not up for grabs. I've faced criticism, rejection, and judgment from the world, from the industry, and yes, sometimes from the people closest to me. Early in my career, I thought I had to fight every battle, respond to every insult, react to every rumor. But I was wrong, because reacting means they control the narrative, but glowing means you own your story. Glowing is when you walk into a room and your presence speaks before you do. Glowing is when you choose elegance over anger, dignity over drama. It's when you let your success do the talking. Your silence becomes more powerful than their noise. And let me tell you, nothing confuses your critics more than your peace. I want you to think about a flame. A candle doesn't react to the darkness, it simply glows, it holds its light, it illuminates, it doesn't scream, it doesn't shout. It just exists unapologetically. That's you. You are that flame, and the world needs your light more than it needs your reaction. So the next time someone underestimates you, disrespects you, or doubts you, don't lower your voice to match their chaos. Raise your energy, elevate your game, turn your back on pettiness, and face the future with fire in your eyes. Because glowing is not about being passive, it's about choosing peace over pointless battles, focus over foolishness and self, worth over validation. And remember, every time you choose not to react, you're telling the universe, I know who I am. I don't need your approval. I am enough. So stop reacting, start glowing, and never forget, you are your own kind of powerful, and the world better get ready. In life, we often find ourselves reacting, impulsively, emotionally, sometimes even desperately. Someone says something rude and we're ready to defend ourselves. Someone doubts our ability and we rush to prove them wrong. But in doing so, we forget one vital truth: every reaction is a transaction. Every time you react to someone's negativity, you're handing them a piece of your power. It's like giving away your peace for free, over and over again. And the more you do it, the more drained and scattered you become. There's something incredibly powerful about stillness. When you stop reacting, you're not ignoring the situation. You're owning it. You're choosing to control your response instead of letting the situation control you. That's real power. That's the kind of strength that doesn't yell, doesn't panic, and doesn't need validation. Because when you know who you are, when you understand your worth, you no longer need to defend your position in every room. You sit back, observe, and choose your responses with purpose, not out of pressure. It takes courage to stay quiet when you've been provoked. It takes confidence to not retaliate when someone challenges your identity, your intelligence, or your dreams. But what people don't often realize is that your energy is one of your most valuable assets. Reacting to every opinion, every insult, every whisper, it's like leaking energy through 100 little cracks. Eventually, you feel empty, bitter, exhausted. That's not the life you were meant to live. You were made to glow, and glowing requires conservation. It requires you to protect your light, to guard your peace, and to walk away from anything that tries to dim your spirit. Reacting is rooted in insecurity. It's a sign that someone else's opinion has gotten under your skin. But choosing not to react, that's confidence. That's knowing that someone else's chaos has nothing to do with your calm. Let people talk, let them misunderstand you, let them underestimate your silence, because the truth is, real strength doesn't flinch, it doesn't need to argue, it doesn't chase after respect, it commands it quietly and consistently. When you stop reacting, you rise, you begin to glow in a way that doesn't need explanation. Your peace becomes your protest, your success becomes your statement, and your silence, that becomes the loudest voice in the room. There's a kind of power that doesn't come from shouting or proving. It comes from simply walking into a room and owning it without saying a word. That's the kind of presence that glows. It's not about being loud, it's about being grounded. It's about carrying yourself with such quiet confidence that people feel it before they even hear you. This kind of presence is built, not performed. It's not about pretending to be someone else. It's about being so fully in touch with who you are that you don't need to seek attention. It finds you. People often confuse attention with impact, but attention fades. Presence leaves a mark, and presence isn't created by reacting to everything around you. It's built by choosing peace, composure, and clarity. When you stop reacting and start glowing, your energy becomes magnetic. People are drawn to someone who doesn't need approval to be powerful. Someone who doesn't have to prove their value in every conversation. You start to carry an inner stillness that speaks volumes. Think of the most powerful people you've ever seen. Those who don't rush to speak, who don't compete to be seen. They're calm, poised, intentional. Their presence demands respect, not because they ask for it, but because they embody it. That's the kind of energy you cultivate when you stop reacting to every external push and pull. You begin to command the space you occupy simply by showing up fully, confidently, and authentically. This doesn't mean you shrink yourself or play small. In fact, it's the opposite. It means you step into every space knowing you belong, not because someone else said so, but because you decided so. You don't need to chase validation when you understand your value. You let your work, your voice, and your vision speak. You let your peace do the heavy lifting, and that's the real glow. When you live like this, something shifts, people notice. They may not be able to explain it, but they'll feel it. They'll feel your clarity, your boundaries, your power. And while others may still choose to engage in drama, chaos, or noise, you'll rise above it. Not with arrogance, but with certainty. Because you've realized that the most powerful thing you can bring into any room isn't a reaction. It's presence, real, rooted, radiant presence that can't be shaken. And when you lead with that, you don't just show up, you shine. There's something deeply powerful about silence, especially in a world that's constantly demanding a response. We're surrounded by noise, opinions flying, egos clashing, people constantly waiting for a reaction. And yet, the boldest, most unforgettable move you can make sometimes is to say nothing at all. It's easy to react. It's easy to defend yourself, to clap back, to prove your point, but silence takes strength. It takes inner security, because when you choose not to react, you're not surrendering. You're standing tall without needing to fight. Silence isn't weakness, it's wisdom. It's the ability to recognize that not every comment deserves your energy, not every confrontation is worth your peace. When someone tries to provoke you, they expect you to react. They expect you to break your calm, to lose your composure, to give them the satisfaction of your attention. But when you remain silent, composed, and unbothered, it sends a message louder than any words ever could. You're above it. You're too focused, too grounded, too intentional to get caught up in meaningless noise. The world can't figure out how to handle someone who doesn't flinch, who doesn't explain, who doesn't get pulled into every battle. Silence becomes your armor. It protects your peace and magnifies your presence. It shows that you have control, not just over the situation, but over yourself. And self-control is one of the most underrated yet powerful forms of self-respect. Imagine the strength it takes to smile when someone tries to provoke you, to walk away when everything in you wants to argue, to stay calm when chaos surrounds you. That's real power. That's the kind of inner glow that can't be dimmed. People may not always understand your silence, but they will feel your confidence. They'll feel your unshakable energy, your refusal to be dragged into negativity. And over time, they'll learn that you're not someone who can be easily disturbed. Choosing silence doesn't mean you don't feel. It means you've mastered the ability to respond with wisdom rather than emotion. It's a form of self-protection and self-celebration. You're telling the world, I don't need to scream to be seen. I don't need to shout to be heard. I am powerful in my peace. So, let your silence speak for you. Let it say you're focused, that your glow doesn't come from attention but from intention. Because at the end of the day, silence isn't the absence of power, it's the very proof of it. There comes a moment in your journey when you realize that not everything deserves an explanation. Not every misunderstanding needs correcting. Not every opinion needs addressing. You begin to understand that your time, your energy, and your purpose are far too valuable to be spent convincing others of who you are. That's when you stop explaining and start elevating. You shift your focus from trying to be understood to simply being undeniable. You let your actions, your growth, and your peace do the talking. Life isn't a courtroom. You don't owe the world a constant defense of your choices. When you're truly rooted in your identity, you know that validation is not a requirement. It's a distraction. The need to be understood by everyone will only slow you down. You'll spend more time reacting to small minds than building your vision. And you weren't made for that. You weren't built to stay small and explain your shine to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. You were built to rise. There is a certain kind of strength in being unbothered. Not out of arrogance, but out of clarity. You start to realize that growth doesn't need applause. Evolution doesn't need permission and elevation. Elevation happens when you stop reacting to things that are beneath your calling. You get laser, focused on becoming better, not bitter. You pour into your craft, your healing, your journey, and in doing so, you become someone who simply doesn't have time to argue. The truth is, people will talk no matter what you do. If you fail, they'll criticize. If you succeed, they'll question it. If you speak, they'll twist it. If you're silent, they'll assume. So why waste precious moments explaining yourself to people who never had the capacity to see your heart in the first place? Why hold your life hostage to opinions that will never pay your bills, fuel your dreams, or build your future? Instead, choose elevation. Let your consistency be your response. Let your results be your rebuttal. Let your glow be your answer. There's nothing more powerful than someone who no longer reacts to noise but channels that energy into becoming more focused, more grounded, more unstoppable. When you make that shift, your life becomes your message. Your transformation becomes your testimony, and suddenly, explaining becomes unnecessary. Because the proof is written all over your presence, so let them talk. You keep rising. Because your next level isn't waiting on their understanding. It's waiting on your decision to move forward without needing approval. Your energy is one of the most valuable things you have. It's not just about how much you can do or how hard you work, it's about what you allow into your mental, emotional, and spiritual space. Every conversation, every thought, every person you engage with either adds to your energy or drains it. And the moment you start protecting that energy, your life begins to change. You stop giving your attention to chaos. You stop chasing after people who don't value your presence. You stop justifying your peace to those who live in conflict. There's a difference between being strong and being available to every battle. Just because someone invites you into drama doesn't mean you have to RSVP. Just because someone throws shade doesn't mean you need to stand in it. When you know your worth, you become selective, not out of pride, but out of wisdom. You start to ask yourself, is this worth my peace? And more often than not, the answer is no. Your energy was meant for creating, growing, healing, and becoming, not reacting. The strongest people aren't the ones who fight every fight. They're the ones who know which fights are worth it, and most of them aren't. When you protect your energy, you start to glow differently. People can see it in the way you walk into a room, in how calm you remain under pressure, in how unfazed you are by the opinions of others. You stop being available for nonsense. You stop letting little things shake you. That calm becomes your power. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is walk away, not because you're weak, but because you're wise enough to know your peace is priceless. You don't have to explain yourself. You don't have to respond to every opinion. You just have to keep your energy clear and your mission focused. The more you grow, the more you realize that not everything deserves access to you. You don't owe everyone your time, your attention, or your emotional investment. Boundaries aren't about pushing people away. They're about protecting your light. They're about making space for what really matters and refusing to be pulled into what doesn't. When you stop letting everyone and everything drain your spirit, you begin to radiate. You become lighter, brighter, stronger, and that glow, it comes from guarding what fuels you and refusing to give your energy to anything that doesn't grow you. That's when the shift happens, not just in how the world sees you, but in how you see yourself. There comes a moment in every person's journey when they realize that the glow they've been chasing outside of themselves has been inside them all along. It doesn't come from applause, attention, or approval. It comes from self-worth, from waking up one day and deciding, I am enough even if no one claps for me. That's when the glow becomes real, because it's not dependent on someone else seeing your value. It's fueled by you finally seeing it for yourself. The kind of glow that lasts is the one born out of a deep, unwavering belief in who you are, without the need for validation. When you rely on others to tell you that you're worthy, you put your light in their hands. You end up dimming yourself when they don't respond, and overextending when they do. It becomes a constant cycle of seeking approval and losing yourself in the process. But when your glow is rooted in self-respect, it can't be dimmed. You start showing up differently. You no longer shrink to fit into someone's expectations. You don't beg to be seen. You realize that your value isn't something to be proven. It's something to be honored. There's an undeniable confidence in someone who knows their worth. They move with intention. They speak with clarity. They no longer tolerate things that drain them. They aren't arrogant. They're aware. Aware of what they bring to the table, aware of what they deserve, aware of how far they've come. And because of that awareness, they don't wait for permission to shine. They simply do. That kind of energy is magnetic. It pulls the right people in and pushes the wrong ones out effortlessly. Validation may feel good in the moment, but it fades. What lasts is the quiet confidence that comes from looking in the mirror and liking the person you see. Not because they're perfect, but because they're real. They've been through storms and still showed up. They've been overlooked and still chose to rise. That's the kind of beauty that doesn't age, doesn't crack, and doesn't break under pressure. That's the glow no one can steal. When you finally choose self-worth over validation, your life transforms. You stop performing and start living. You stop chasing people and start attracting peace. You stop reacting and start radiating. And in that shift, something powerful happens. You no longer live to be liked, you live to be free. And that freedom, that's your glow. And it will light up every room you walk into, whether anyone acknowledges it or not. Thank you.